Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of a post-race analysis video on the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast. We are going to talk all things Daytona regular season finale, what went down on Saturday night as my favorite driver right there, Ryan Blaney, went back-to-back. We'll talk about all the stages leading up to it, the playoff drama that ensued throughout, both with the points battle between Tyler Reddick and Austin Dillon, the regular season championship battle between Denny Hamlin and Kyle Larson, and of course, the race win battle, seeing who was all close to going to victory lane to getting their first win, to locking up a playoff spot that could have booted both RCR boys out for the night. Like, share, and subscribe. And for more daily NASCAR content, we got a lot of stuff to talk about here today. And of course, we have a champion to crown on our NASCAR Fantasy League. So, a lot to get through here. And we only got about 55 minutes to do so before we go live for the NASCAR Heat 5 Career Mode race tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard start time, when we go Cup Series racing at Mid-Ohio Motorsports Park. So, again, welcome to the stream. Ashton G, Cars One Boy, welcome, welcome, welcome. This race was fun. Yes, it was a very fun race. So, quick details leading up into it. I had to do the predictions video beforehand. We did live stream it. I had a fantasy football draft between the race, between work. I had a fantasy football draft, and then like towards the end of the draft, the race was like going on. I was keeping an eye on it for the most part. I pretty much caught everything. I didn't think I missed a lap. If I did get up to make my pick, I made sure it was during a commercial break and stalled a couple extra minutes there. So I didn't really miss anything, I don't think. So hopefully I cover everything perfectly. As usual, we start off with stage number one. Rolling on into the competition yellow, it was basically pretty racy from the get-go. The least amount of action that we had seen throughout the course of the night was in stage one. It was before that competition caution. It seemed like things were kind of mellowing out. There's a train around the outside of the racetrack for about a dozen laps or so. And then a couple laps before the competition yellow started getting a little racy again. There were a lot of lead changes in this race as well. 45 lead changes in a 165 lap race. That is insane. That is over a quarter of the race was being swapped for the lead. Let me count how many different leaders we had in this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different leaders in this race as well. There were definitely some different front runners. The drivers who led the most laps early on would have been guys like, man, it was really, honestly, it was kind of tough to tell. I mean, there were guys that were quietly up there in the top 10. I think Cole Custer was one of those drivers that was just quietly in the top 10 for most of the night, but didn't really lead any laps. I don't even think he led a single lap, but I remember seeing him up towards the front quite a bit. Joey Logano was kind of up there for quite a ways as well. And he did lead the most laps in the race as well with 37 laps led. Chase Elliott led a lot of laps, but most of the laps he led was in the final stage on that split strategy with the Chevys pitting a little bit late. Or, sorry, they pitted earlier than the Fords. Or, wait a minute. No, that's right. They didn't pit under green. The Fords pit under green. That's why Elliott was at the front leading a lot of the laps at that point in time. But even then, it was still pretty racy behind him. It was a very fun race to watch as a whole. I mean, again, there were a lot of lead changes. You couldn't really tell who had the faster car because even on super speedways, although it could be chaotic, you could definitely, like, at times tell, like this year in the Daytona 500, I think Denny Hamlin had the best car. He won both stages, led a lot of laps in the race. I think he was the guy to beat. Ryan Blaney in Talladega 2020, the spring race, he led a lot of laps in that race. I think he led like over 70 laps in that race. So you can definitely tell, like, even in the super speedways, there could be a lot of lead changes, and you still end up seeing a plethora of drivers trying to contend for the lead, but there's that one specific driver that leads most of the laps in this race, and we never really got that. Yes, Chase Elliott led over 30 laps, but it was because of basically like a track position kind of game with the strategy they're playing on the fuel mileage in the final stage, and Logano led the most laps with 37 laps led, but 37 laps led in a 165 lap race, scheduled to be 160, but they had overtime that went 5 laps longer. Yeah, that was definitely very competitive. There were a lot of underdogs that were running up towards the front for most of the day. Corey LaJoie had the race of his life this weekend. He was up at the front in stage one. I don't think he led any laps. Let me look here. Let's see. Corey LaJoie led 1 lap. So Corey LaJoie led 1 lap in the race. but he was up inside the top 10 for a large part of the final stage. But even in like stage two, in the middle of stage two, he was up there towards the top 10, fighting it on the inside lane. Great run for Corey LaJoie. The playoff drama. Austin Dillon was up towards the front in stage one. He ended up getting a lot of stage points as we'll actually run through the stage one results. Chase Elliott was able to win stage one, holding off Denny Hamlin, who finished second. Kyle Busch was third. Ross Chastain was fourth. Martin Truex Jr. was fifth. There's Austin Dillon finishing sixth. He was actually up in second there with about a lap and a half to go, but he got shuffled out of line back to sixth. Costly points at that time of the race. Corey LaJoie, as I talked about, was in the top 10 most of the day, and he ended up finishing seventh in stage one. Joey Logano eighth, Ryan Preece ninth, and Christopher Bell rounded out the top 10. As far as the incidents in stage one go, there was no cautions for incident in the first stage. Pretty cut and simple, but a lot of aggressive racing at the very end of the stage, coming to the green-white checker. It looked like Kyle Busch got a little loose on his own, trying to make a cut to the outside on his teammate Hamlin for second, almost lost control and put it in the wall. I think earlier in that stage as well, it might have been early stage two, but I think it was in stage one when Ross Chastain tried to pull a block on the outside lane. I don't know. It was weird because he never made contact with anybody, and it was in the middle of the straightaway, and he pulled up and just put himself in the wall. It looked like me on NASCAR Heat 5. I think it was at Talladega the last time we were there. I did that once during the race. I cost myself the lead. Only him. It was, like third or fourth place. He tried to hop in line, stacked up the outside. Good thing they didn't wreck there because that definitely could have been a big accident in the race, and that would have been pretty bad looking as far as that easily could have been avoided accident. Nonetheless, we get into stage two in the race, and welcome everybody to the stream. By the way, a lot of you guys coming in here. Tyler Burbeck, Kyle Larson fan, Patrick Shadley, as well as the couple I already shouted out when we started the stream as well. Austin Dillon did so well to avoid the first big one, just sneaking through to the back. Yeah, for sure. Definitely kept himself in contention. In stage two, though, we ended up having a smaller accident. A couple cars went spinning. Alex Bowman, Eric Almirola started sliding sideways. It said the 37 and the 38 car was involved. I think I remember Alfredo getting into the grass and tearing his car up there. I don't remember how Ryan Preece was exactly involved in that accident. It's difficult that we did this 2 days after the race instead of 1 day. Usually we do it the day after, and it's a lot easier to remember. But anyway, Almirola ended up spinning. He actually caught the wall with the right rear corner panel, so he damaged that up pretty good. Still was able to rally to get back inside the top five late in the race. Same for Alex Bowman, who was involved in that spin, but had less damage, really little to no damage on Bowman's car compared to Almirola's, and he still got back into race-winning contention in those final 10 laps as well, was inside the top five late. So kudos to both of those drivers, too. Fighting through adversity going into the final stage. The stage two results, Joey Logano got a stage win. Austin Dillon scored even more stage points than what he did in stage one and stage two. Finished second. William Byron third. Tyler Reddick tried to join in on those stage points because he was racing Austin Dillon. Dillon came in 25 points behind Tyler Reddick going into the race. And in the stage points alone, he would have outscored Reddick by 7. So he would have had to beat Tyler Reddick by 17 positions in order to get that final playoff spot on points, barring a different winner at that time period going into the final stage. So again, Byron third, Reddick fourth, Kyle Larson was fifth. After running in the back, just trying to avoid maybe an early accident, he made his way up there late in the stage, putting himself in contention to try and get track position for the start of the final stage. Also, he was battling Denny Hamlin for the regular season championship because he came in about 29 points ahead of Hamlin. Hamlin scored 9 points in stage one to Larson 0, while Larson outscored Hamlin, with Hamlin getting 0 stage points in stage two and Larson getting 6. Ryan Blaney ended up finishing 6th in the stage, followed by Stenhouse 7th, Kyle Busch 8th, Bubba Wallace 9th, and again, Christopher Bell rounded out the top 10 at stage number 2. In the final stage of the race, this is where we had a few incidents, but it was a little bit later on. Talked about it briefly. There's some split strategy, as I kind of expected and stated in the predictions video, that getting into the final stage, you're going to see the Fords pit with the Fords, you're going to see the Chevys pit with the Chevys, and the Toyotas were going to either link on with the Chevy strategy or the Ford strategy because there was only 5 or 6 cars that were Toyotas that started this race. I think 6 of them. started this race as a Toyota. So they were outnumbered. They wouldn't have been able to pit and keep up the speed in a single file run, even that the Fords and the Chevys were, because they were heavily outnumbered. They were going to have to pit with one of them. Well, they decided to pit with the Chevys, or not pit with the Chevys, because the Fords came into the pits 10 laps prior to a caution. Then we ended up having a yellow where I don't even think there was anybody coming to pit road. It was really weird. It was at the rear of the pack. 3 Rick Ware racing cars got involved in an accident. It looked like one of them just got loose off turn 4, started sliding sideways. One of them tried to miss the spinning car, cutting to the inside. When he tried to go high, he just completely clipped himself into the outside wall, taking out another Rick Ware racing car who happened to be right there. It sucks for them, but it's like, how did that even happen? I mean, it was the most memeable Rick Ware accident I think I've ever seen. Um, and they were the only 3 involved in the accident. And it started with those 3. It's not like anybody checked up in front of them and they were trying to avoid the accident and all got caught in it or something. It was just all started on their own and ended with their own race cars, unfortunately. That ended up giving the Ford's track position for the second to last restart of the race with about 20 laps to go. Putting guys like Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Eric Almirola, Matt DiBenedetto back up towards the front of the field, and they were the top 4 Fords at that time, but all the Fords cycled up to the front with the highest running Chevy and Toyota drivers starting from 14th on back on the restart. So they were going to try to team up, gun down the Fords. The Fords were trying to stick together single file as much as they could, at least towards the front of the field. Those top 4, as I mentioned, DiBenedetto, Blaney, Logano, and Almirola put themselves in a position to run a single file, but because they pitted under green, they went fuel only versus the Chevy drivers had tires. Doesn't really make a huge factor on super speedway racing when you don't have the grip level, because these cars, especially with this current package and with the slower speeds in general too that we saw this weekend, that there is not as much tire wear. But where it was substantial was because all the Chevys were working together. You had a ton of cars with fresh tires working together versus the cars that were working together on the outside had older tires. So that was the difference maker there, and why Elliot was able to lead the charge on the inside and get those Chevys and Toyotas into contention. He was getting great pushes from Denny Hamlin at that point in time as well, and great pushes to get up towards the front. Ended up briefly taking the lead away for a couple laps, trying to fend off Denny Hamlin and Matt DiBenedetto. He made a huge, well, he's making a bunch of big blocks for sure, as was everybody. Logano was making big blocks on Elliot before Elliot took the lead. Elliot got to the lead. He was trying to block Logano. And DiBenedetto, one block too many, caused the big one off of turn 4. What happened is Denny Hamlin was giving Matt DiBenedetto a massive, massive shot going into turn 3. DiBenedetto faked high, which they were pretty much on the outside lane anyway. Chase Elliott went towards the wall. Or no, it was the other way around. He went low, so that brought Elliott off the top lane. Then he went high, and Elliott tried to double block, and that's where we always see these big accidents in recent years, specifically with this package, as drivers try to block too much. They can't block the run. Well, if you can't block the run, don't try to block the run, and that's what causes these accidents. Chase Elliott, he made a successful first block, but then when DiBenedetto stayed in the gas, he made the great move to the outside, great double cut, actually similar to what he did a few laps prior when he cut low, then cut high. Made a great move to get to the outside, but he couldn't get the push that he needed to get out in front at that time. Elliott was able to pull back clear, and then a lap or two later is when that accident happened. But one block too many by Chase Elliott, and it's tough to see because you don't see Chase Elliott usually pulling those kinds of moves. Obviously, everybody in a situation, like this, they do try to block, but Elliott's not one of those guys to, pull multiple blocks on the same driver at the same time like he did there, and it caused a big accident. He was probably out of his comfort zone at that point too, with not really doing those kind of moves often, and it costed him. The lack of practice, I guess you would say, with that definitely cost him, and there was just no chance he was going to be able to block that second move. They were going at least 5 to 10 miles an hour faster than him in the draft compared to the lead car with that push, with Hamlin pushing him. There was no chance for DiBenedetto to even check up if he wanted to because Hamlin was bump drafting him, so it was all on Chase Elliott's fault there. Very similar to Tyler Reddick, same spot in the middle of a corner when Reddick tried to pull a block on Kyle Busch late in the Daytona regular season finale last year. The difference is Reddick was more of a slide job move that he just missed time versus Elliot was a block successful, and then he tried to double block, and again, usually when you double block, things go wrong. So a lot of cars were taken out in that accident, according to Racing Reference. The drivers involved in the accident were Martin Truax Jr., the 96 of Landon. Sorry, that was a different. Oh yeah, that's right. I even forgot about that crash after the Rickward Racing crash. About a lap and a half after the restart, Truex had gotten turned down the back straightaway. Landon Castle was involved. Chris Buescher was involved. Reddick was involved. That was big for the championship battle because that put Austin Dillon in a much better circumstance to try and beat Reddick by 17 positions because he was definitely close to doing so, especially after that big one ended up coming out. The big one involved Chase Elliott, Christopher Bell, Matt DiBenedetto got a big piece of it. Hamlin got a big piece of it. Kyle Busch took a very big hit from Kaz Grala in the 16 on the right side door. Thankfully, not the driver's side door, because if he would have hit the driver's side door with the damage that did to that car, that would not have been very pretty. But luckily, it was on the right side of the race car, so Kyle Busch and Kaz Grala were both okay in that. They definitely took the hardest licks. We got a disco going on in my room right now. One of my light bulbs is starting to flash, starting to go out. Anyway, Ryan Preece was also involved in that accident as well. Cole Custer, who I mentioned, was running in the top 10 quietly most of the night. He was involved in that wreck as well. Chastain was involved. So definitely took out some heavy hitters. Stenhouse as well was involved in that accident, unfortunately for him. So that set up the final restart of the race. We ended up having an overtime restart, 2 laps to decide the winner. And the drivers who made it through that wreck that got the restart in the front row was Chris Buescher and Ryan Blaney. Yes, Blaney made it through. There were also the likes of drivers that didn't have a win on the season, like Corey LaJoie lining up in the first couple rows. Ryan Newman was up there. Bubba Wallace was a few rows back. I think he restarted like 9th. So all those drivers had a chance to win the race. Austin Dillon as well had a chance to win the race and put themselves in the playoffs. And even for Austin Dillon's standpoint, you know, maybe if we didn't have that wreck down the backstretch, maybe he could have outpointed Tyler Reddick by enough positions to get into the playoffs, especially with the stage points he had scored earlier on in the race. So we end up going on to, disco party time. Did anybody else see that just a little bit ago? That was very noticeable out of the corner of my eye. Anyway, it helps too that it's an LED light, so that probably made it more, I guess, absurd with the flashing lights. Anyway, into the final set of the race. Restart. Corey LaJoie gave Ryan Blaney a massive push, got him out to the lead. There was a run down the back straightaway as they were getting up to speed down on the inside lane. Blaney could not block it. Coming to the white flag, Corey LaJoie gave him another huge shot to get back out into the lead again. And from then on, Ryan Blaney, going into turn 1, had a huge lead after the push from LaJoie. LaJoie tried to back up to get a run instead of trying to duck down the first time through the tri-oval. When he had the run, he decided to instead push Blaney. I think that costed LaJoie the chance to win the race at that point. That really seemed to stall his run out. Plus, it gave the guys a second chance on that bottom lane to get the run instead of LaJoie swinging down in front of him and then getting the push from then and trying to defend at the end of the race like Blaney was in the situation. So Blaney got a huge lead, and by the end of the back straightaway, a massive run was coming from the likes of Kevin Harvick and Daniel Suarez in the 99 for Trackhouse Racing. Suarez got a massive push down the back straightaway from Kurt Busch. He swung low underneath Kevin Harvick. Kurt tried to swing low to follow Suarez. In the process of doing so, he clipped his right rear corner panel, sent Suarez, who was going for second at the time, right into the side of Kevin Harvick, took out the second, third, and many other cars further back, leaving Ryan Blaney ahead of the pack to hang on and win the race under caution conditions there. Even if it stayed green back to the checker, nobody was going to catch Blaney. The only guy in vicinity was Chris Buescher, and he was all by himself, so he wasn't going to be able to get the run to get around him. Plus, obviously, we saw at the end of the race that Chris Buescher failed post-race inspection too, so even if he did somehow get around him, it wouldn't have mattered. Ryan Blaney won at Daytona. Back-to-back wins for him. That's 3 straight top 2 finishes for Ryan Blaney, and we'll when we get into the power ranking side of things, we'll go over Blaney's statistical success in the last 10 races because he has had a lot of it, and I think he could be a force to be reckoned with to at least make it to the championship for this season, assuming he makes it out of that dreaded round of 16 for him where he's got 2 of his worst racetracks statistically to show up at Darlington and Richmond. Anyway, outside of that, the finishing results: Ryan Blaney with the win. Bubba Wallace ended up second after the Chris Buescher uh, DNQ, or sorry, not DNQ. What would you call it? Just DQ, I guess. Disqualification, with him finishing dead last. Ryan Newman came up with a quiet third place finish. Ryan Preece, who was involved in 2 accidents on the night, finished fourth. Tyler Reddick, who was involved in the first big accident down the back straightaway, rallied. All the smoke pouring down the back of that car. I thought he was done. And I thought Austin Dillon, if he could have just survived to the end of the race and got a top 10 finish, he would have made it, as my prediction was for Austin Dillon to point his way in. But Reddick, in fact, was the one to rally to a top 5, where Dillon got caught up in that big accident on the last lap. In fact, he was involved in the second accident on the last lap of the race while running inside the top 10. Justin Haley with a great performance, finishing 6th for Spire Motorsports. Alex Bowman 7th, Chase Elliott 8th, BJ McLeod 9th, and Josh Bilicki rounds out the top 10. All the Rick Ware cars wrecked each other earlier. The only guy who was not involved in that accident that was a Rick Ware racing car was Bilicki, and he managed to get a top 10 at the end of the day. As far as drivers who had gotten in an accident, only the top 14, I believe, had finished the race under their own power. Because Harvick did finish the race out of technicality as well, but he was obviously heavily involved in that last accident. He was scored in 15th place position. So that's pretty much the Daytona wrap up. Kyle Larson won the regular season championship. Hamlin getting involved in that second to last accident, the second to last caution of the race that set up the overtime finish is where he was involved in that one. So that took him out of contention once Larson made it through that wreck. That Larson was easily going to win the regular season championship. And again, Reddick fought the odds to point his way in. We did not get a different winner. So Tyler Reddick gets the last spot in for the playoffs on points as well. Yes, the Buckeye Disco. How about Josh Bilicki at the top 10 finish? Indeed. Tires very likely mattered for sure, especially when you have that many cars lining up together. It would be different if you had some guys on fresh tires working with guys on old tires. Then I don't think it would have mattered as much. But because everybody on the fresh tires was at the back and they were able to gang up on the guys on older tires, I think that really did help. But obviously, at the end of the race, one of the guys on old tires didn't win. And not even that. I mean, Harvick would have been on older tires too because he was a Ford. Suarez and Kurt Busch had that big run down the back straightaway. They would have been the first guys on fresh tires trying to make the run at the checkered flag for the race win. What would have been if Keselowski had not wrecked him at Michigan? I know. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, though. Unfortunately, the job was not done. His fault or not. BJ McLeod, top 9. That's NASCAR Heat 5 stats. Yeah, that is our NASCAR Heat 5 career mode season. BJ McLeod getting the top 10 for his own race team. That's awesome. That's an awesome story, though, right there. Good for BJ McLeod, that's for sure. Good for BJ McLeod. So if we look at the current playoff standings, now that the playoffs are completely set, Kyle Larson leads the way at 47 points above the cutoff line with the regular season championship, 12 stage wins and 5 race wins on the year. Again, the All-Star race doesn't count towards points at all. It counted in his wallet with the extra $1 million, but it did not count for race. So 5 wins for Kyle Larson. And again, 12 stage wins and 15 playoff points for a regular season championship. Martin Truex Jr. and Ryan Blaney are tied for second, both 19 points above the cutoff line. Kyle Busch is sitting 17 points above the cutoff line. Chase Elliott is 16 points above the cutoff line in fifth. Alex Bowman 6th with 3 wins on the year as well. He has 10 points. He's tied with Denny Hamlin. Hamlin's only playoff points come for finishing second in the regular season standings. Getting 10 playoff points there, and then getting 5 playoff points with the 5 stage wins he's got this year. Remember, no race wins for Denny Hamlin. William Byron is 9 points above the cutoff line in 8th. Very consistent season as well for him, but only 1 win to show for. So very similar to Hamlin. He's got less stage wins than Denny, so that is what leaves him. And he finished further back in the regular season standings, so that's why he's 1 point behind Denny Hamlin. Joey Logano is 9th at 8 points above the cutoff line. Keselowski 3 points above the cutoff line in 10th. Kurt Busch is 3 points above the cutoff line. And as far as the last driver above the cutoff line, virtue of a tiebreaker, is Michael Mcdowell. Michael Mcdowell and Christopher Bell are tied right now in the cutoff line, and Eric Almirola. So it's a 3-way tie for the cutoff spot. The final spot, that is, Tyler Reddick is 2 points out going in, and Kevin Harvick is going to start as the 16th seed. Yes, the regular season champ a year ago, the number 1 seed going into the playoffs a year ago, is the number 16 seed to start the playoffs 1 calendar year later. How about that? So it's going to be very fun to watch how that unfolds starting at Darlington next Sunday night. Almost caught in fantasy, finished 39 points behind you in fourth place. Yeah, for sure. Definitely got close. I did not have a good week this week. We'll rally off how my fantasy team went, and then, of course, we have a champion to crown here today on the NASCAR Fantasy Podcast. Again, you can join the NASCAR Fantasy League on the NASCAR mobile app or website. Search for KRC League, KRC in all caps, capital L for League. And you can sign up with your email. It is free to join. Chance to win 2 tickets to any NASCAR race of your choosing in 2022, excluding the Daytona 500. And again, as mentioned, we have a champion to crown here tonight for a regular season who will win those 2 tickets, and I will try to get out to that racetrack next year as well. You have until the end of 2020 calendar year, so you have until New Year's to select what race exactly you want to go to next season. So just putting that out there as well. But we will have another contest for the playoffs, and we'll see if you guys can beat me. This driver did beat me. Definitely helped this week that I did not have a good week. William Byron got caught up in that big accident. He did not have a great finish despite having a strong car. Matt DiBenedetto was up there late, but he got involved in that big accident when Chase Elliott threw a bad block on him. Austin Dillon had a great day, though. As I had expected, he was one of the predictions I had for the sleeper picks, and he definitely had a pretty strong day going until the end of the race when he got caught up in the last accident as well. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., he got in an accident, and Chris Buescher, who eventually finished second, but unfortunately ended up with just 1 point due to getting DQ'd, failing post-race inspection after the race. Brad Keselowski was in my garage at the end of the night, and he ended up outscoring Buescher by 3 points, but that wasn't going to be enough for me to win the championship. The only points I really scored was my bonus points because I had Ryan Blaney as my top Ford driver. He won the race, obviously, and I had Ford and Penske winning the race, and they ended up going on to win the race as well. Even though my prediction was Hamlin to win, I decided to split the points again. I might do that going forward. Inside Uranus, welcome to the stream. Big Dick Nick, welcome as well. Earl Arnold Jr., Ethan, welcome on in. The guys that I have not shouted out, going to win the playoffs. Hey, there you go. And you get a chance to win maybe another race. So you have a chance to double down. So as I kind of spoiled it there, we're going to look at the league standings. Oh, I actually ended up third. I didn't realize that. So anyway, pulling away with it after Daytona, but it was very tight going in where we had 6 drivers. We had 6 teams, 6 players in this fantasy league that mathematically had a shot to win the championship for the regular season. Going into Daytona Saturday night, it was your own Inside Uranus in the chat currently that wins the championship. So you get 2 tickets to any NASCAR race of your choosing in 2022, again, excluding the Daytona 500. Find a way to let me know. I will try to find a way to email you in the coming days, weeks leading up. Well, I guess the weeks leading to the end of the season to try and figure out exactly, what race you want to go to or whatever, and get the 2 tickets to you. If you're under the age of 18, I do need to speak with an adult and not you specifically, so you'll have to let me know on that because I am unaware on if you are or not. So I could send the tickets to an adult. So, yeah, great job. Congratulations to, and he self-proclaimed himself when he took the lead late in the season as well as the KRC regular season fantasy champion Inside Uranus on the actual league. That's his actual name on the league, but we know him as Inside Uranus in the chat. So thanks for being a supporter of the channel, and thanks for, again, being involved here. Can I join your league in playoffs? Yes, again, you are automatically qualified for the playoffs. Obviously, if you miss a week, it's going to be tough to win the playoff championship, but everybody who is signed up by the start of the Darlington race next Sunday with the fantasy lineup locked in is eligible to play. Obviously, you have to be a subscriber of the channel as well if you're going to play for you to win, which I know Inside Uranus is a subscriber to the channel. So he is definitely going to win those tickets, and we still have a chance for somebody else to be crowned if you can beat me, of course. But as the overall top 5, Inside Uranus, again, with the win, it was an 87-point victory over P-Chat Motorsports. Patrick Chatterley, who had the lead for the first half of the season, fell back to about 4th or 5th, climbed back up to 2nd there after Daytona, but it was a little too late. I was closing in recent weeks as well, but had a terrible Daytona matchup ended up finishing third. Tyler Burbeck ended up finishing fourth in the chat, and then Tim Irvin ended up rounding out the top 5 for our regular season. Currently have 15 players that are ready to go for the playoffs right now, so make sure you join on in. It'll be a lot of fun. That'll be a tough battle. Missed one race, so still rallied for fourth. Yeah, that's pretty solid for missing one race, for sure. But make sure you don't miss a race this time. You got another chance. And the playoffs are only 10 weeks, so maybe an even tighter points battle with only having 10 races versus 26 in the regular season. And for it to come down to 6 people in the last week of the season after 26 races, that's pretty impressive. Alrighty. So that wraps that up. We'll talk briefly about the predictions that we had going into the race weekend. On the predictions video, I always drop in drivers that you should put in your lineup if you haven't started at all this year. I'm not sure exactly how the playoff rules are going to apply this year. They usually change it every year, so more on that coming up later in the week. It's similar because as far as like the points and the bonus points, all that is the same. I think usually the way they do it for the playoffs, it's you have to pick 2 drivers that are in the playoffs on your fantasy team. You have to pick 2 drivers that are not in the playoffs on your fantasy team. So if that is the case, then that will be the new game going forward. Instead of the regular season, you just pick 5 drivers who are obviously you're not in the playoffs, so you can pick any 5 drivers you want, but you can't start more than 10 times throughout the year. Usually there's no limit to how many times you can start a guy in the playoffs, but you have to pick like 2 playoff drivers and 2 non-playoff drivers. At least that's how it has been the last 2 years. We'll see if they change that up this year or if they'll keep it the same. So, again, more on that coming up later in the week when I get the details for that, because right now I do not have the details for that. As far as the predictions went, again, we have to review that. My pick to win the race was Denny Hamlin. He ended up finishing in the 13th position. Had a good car, led 7 laps, but my top 10 prediction for him and obviously the race 1 prediction were wrong on that one. So, very unfortunate there, but really just at the end of the day, you had the car, you had the speed, just didn't survive the accident. Another driver I had for the must-have pick, go back in here just to refresh myself. Another driver I had was William Byron. Byron ended up finishing even further back in the field because he got caught up and could not continue the race versus Hamlin at least continued. Byron finished 37th. He was my other must-have. That's where my fantasy team got killed, is because I had some drivers that, again, like if I give you guys wrong advice, I start those guys too. So it's not like, I'm putting you guys at fault. It's like if it's a sinking ship, we all go down together. So that's kind of the deal with that. But anyway, Byron, Hamlin, those were my 2 must-haves. They both finished outside the top 10. On a brighter note, the sleeper picks, Austin Dillon was one of mine. He scored a lot of stage points in the race. Unfortunately, he finished 17th. I said he'd finish in the top 10. So I guess I was still wrong there, even though I was closer to being right. And then outside of Austin Dillon, I also had Matt DiBenedetto, who was up there late and ended up finishing 25th, being involved in the accident. So 0 for 4 on the predictions so far. The drivers who were don't haves that I said would not finish in the top 10. Alex Bowman finished 7th. He survived the wrecks and actually was in a spin, but again had no damage from it. Continued to finish 7th. I was wrong on that because I said he wasn't going to get a top 10. 0 for 5. And then I was right on one prediction. Martin Truax Jr. got involved in an accident down the back straightaway in the final 20 laps. He did not finish in the top 10, so I was 1 for 6 this week. Not great at all. Probably the worst week I've had so far this year. I think I've only had like 3 bad weeks, and they've all been like the last 6 or 7 races. So sorry for that. Daytona's kind of luck in the draw as far as who's going to survive the accidents and who doesn't. And obviously, all the guys that I predicted for sleepers and must-haves got involved in one of those last few accidents. So if not multiple of those last few accidents. So tough break there. R6, welcome to the stream. Did good in your first fantasy, got 141 points. Yeah, there you go for Daytona. That's not bad at all. Not bad at all. Going to win with Cody Ware in the lineup every week. Oh, jeez. Keegan, is this your only stream today? No, it is not. NASCAR Heat 5 Career Mode. It's already up on the channel right now, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard start time. I should say the chat is already on for that stream, so we'll start that at the top of the hour. The only thing we have to go through now is power rankings for this week over the next 20 minutes. Power rankings for this week, and this is unique because we know who the 10 playoff drivers are, and we know what the new playoff points are like, so that is why these power rankings have shifted quite a bit from what we have had in recent weeks, now that we actually have the playoff standings in place. Are you playing baseball with that accuracy? No, I am not. I am not. That would not put me in the Hall of Fame either. I'd 1 for 6. That's not statistical. If I would have won 2 for 6, then we'd be on to something there. That'd be over 300 batting average. That'd be pretty good. Guess Bubba Wallace as best Toyota and got it. Yeah, hey, good prediction on that one. Good prediction on that one. I almost put Wallace as one of my must-haves, but I figured he'd be one to get into crash late, and he never did. Nice Clay Matthews design behind it. Yeah, I need to take that down because it looks awkward with the flag behind it. I'm a big Packers fan, but I know he doesn't play for him anymore, but he was still one of my favorites. I don't even think he's in the league anymore. I know he played for the Rams last year. I don't even know who he's playing for now. I don't think he's with the Rams anymore. Anyway, into the power rankings. These are my top 10 for championship. Number 1 being my championship favorite. The top 4 are the drivers who I think will make the championship 4 as of right now. And then beyond that, are just 5 through 10. Drivers, obviously top 8 would be the round of 8. 9 and 10 would be the cuts for there. But at least I think all these drivers going into this round have a good chance of making it into the round of 12. That's for sure. I will have playoff predictions as a whole later in the week. That'll be a separate video on the channel, not a live stream, but it will be a separate video on the channel coming out either Wednesday or Thursday, where I'll go through my 16 playoff drivers that I predicted at the beginning of the season, which ones I got right, which ones I got wrong, who made the playoffs, who didn't, and then race-by-race predictions as well through the regular season, what I got wrong and what I didn't. I predicted every single race winner from the Daytona 500 through the Daytona regular season finale, and we'll see how that locked up as well. So that'll be a lot of fun going through that on either Wednesday or Thursday. That video will be uploaded. Sure, I'm a Hall of Famer, but not baseball. Oh, gotcha. All right. So starting off at number 10 on the power rankings list, we have William Byron. Yes, William Byron is number 10 on the list. He has had a fall from grace in my power rankings the last few weeks. And I didn't want to put him at number 10. I think he's more deserving of being 7 or 8 with the consistency he has had this season. The reason why he's number 10 is the lack of playoff points. Now that the playoffs are going to start, and seeing that he is only, seeing he is only 9 points above the cutoff line, that doesn't scream confidence for me. We look at William Byron's stats in recent weeks as well. They have not been that great compared to the 9 guys ahead of him on this list. 37th at Daytona, 2nd at Michigan was good, 33rd at Indy, not so hot, 6th at Watkins Glen, good, 21st at New Hampshire, 20th at Atlanta, and 33rd at Road America, even 12th in the second Pocono race as well. A lot of the stats I went off of were like last 8 to 10 races. In those last 8 races, he's only got 2 top 10 finishes. So that doesn't scream wild confidence when you're lacking the playoff points going in. The bright side is Hendrick has had speed this season pretty much as a whole this year, and that team has shown speed in recent weeks. Michigan, they had a chance to win, couldn't get it done. Indy, they had great speed, had a chance to win, couldn't get it done. And Daytona, he had good speed as well. So they're bringing good speed, he's just not getting the finishes. He's going to have to get the finishes now. Not sure exactly how he is statistically at Darlington or Richmond, or Bristol for that matter. So, well, again, that's why I'm having those predictions later in the week. But as far as my power rankings go, I have him at number 10 this week. Brad Keselowski moves up 1 in the power rankings list. He is up to number 9 as of right now. Drivers who were left off the list for this week would include Christopher Bell, Michael McDowell, Kurt Busch, of the playoff drivers again, Eric Almirola, and I believe that was it. And Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick and Tyler Reddick as well. So those playoff drivers are not on the list this week. Keselowski, I've been saying he could be around a 16 exit this year. I was believing that until he started to pick up the slack in recent weeks. Comparison, we just mentioned that William Byron only has 2 top 10s in the last 8 races. We'll look at Brad Keselowski's stats real quick here in the last 8 races as well. They are a little bit better, although they're not great. Specifically, the road courses were not great. Neither was Daytona. 33rd, not so hot. 9th, top 10. Not so hot at Indy, 24th. 35th at the Glen, not good. But then the few races before that was where he has Byron beat. 3rd at New Hampshire, 10th at Atlanta, 13th at Road America, but then 3rd at Pocono. So in the last 8 races, Brad Keselowski has 4 top 10s to William Byron's 2, and Byron has 1 top 5 in that stretch, where Brad Keselowski has 2 top 5s in that 8-race stretch. So that's the only reason Keselowski has Byron beat. He's just a little bit better with the finishes, at least in recent weeks, compared to William Byron. So let me know down in the chat as well while I'm reading this off how you think my power rankings are going. Again, right now I got Keselowski at 9, William Byron at 10. Let me know if that's accurate. Let me know if maybe I'm where I'm wrong, where you guys think I'm wrong, if I am wrong in your opinion. I'd like to see. Alex Bowman comes in at number 8 on the list. The only saving grace for him that puts him ahead of both Keselowski and Byron is that he has 3 wins on the season, and versus those 2 drivers have 1 win on the season. Alex Bowman comes in a little bit better in the playoff standings, actually only 1 point better than William Byron, but he has had a little bit more success in recent weeks than William Byron as well. He's pretty equal with Brad Keselowski. Again, the only place I have him beating Keselowski is because he has 3 wins and has a few more playoff points. He's 7 points ahead of Keselowski in the standings right now. Tied for 6th place is Alex Bowman versus Keselowski's in 10th. So there's a little bit of a buffer there. Let me pull up Bowman's stats. So going off that 8-race, or even 9 races, because if you throw in 9 races, he had that win at Pocono in the first Pocono race. So 7th at Daytona, good finish there, top 10. 16th at Michigan, not bad, but not great. Not bad, but not great at Indy, 17th. Not great at Watkins Glen, 20th. So he had 3 rough races there, but before that, 9th at New Hampshire, 4th at Atlanta, 22nd Road America, not great, even though he was in the top 5 late. He had contact with Hamlin, obviously, with his teammate Larson, then had a tire rub, which cost him a top 5 at Road America, 7th at Pocono, and then 1st at Pocono. So in the last 8 races, he also has 4 top 10s, just like Brad Keselowski, and he also has 1 top 5 versus Keselowski's 2. But I threw in an extra race for Pocono with him getting the win there versus Keselowski and Byron because he did have a win. So that is, again, between that and the fact he's got 3 wins on the year versus their 2 is why I have Alex Bowman at number 8 on the power rankings list. At number 7, I stated Kurt Busch wasn't on the list. My bad on that one. Kurt Busch is on the list. Sorry for that. And I have him at number 7. Now, I know he's been outside the top 10 in points all season. He comes in 11th in the playoff standings, but he has been one of the hottest drivers in NASCAR over the last 8 races, which is pretty much kind of my increment during this stretch period. The last 8 races for Kurt Busch: 12th at Daytona, 4th at Michigan, 6th at Indy, 13th at the Glen, 16th at New Hampshire, 1st at Atlanta, 4th at Road America, and then both Pocono races, 20th and 6th. So also, just like Keselowski and Bowman, he's got 4 top 10 finishes in the last 8 races. He has a win in the last 8 races, which is something that Bowman, Keselowski, or Byron don't have. Bowman was in the last 9 races, but not 8. And he's got 1 more top 5 than both Keselowski and Bowman in recent races. The only downfall for Kurt Busch compared to those guys is he doesn't have as many stage wins on the season, so he is behind all those guys in points to start the playoffs. But outside of that, he has definitely been on a more consistent streak than those 3 drivers. And I think if I had to pick one of those guys to get to the round of 8, I'd lean more towards Kurt Busch than Brad Keselowski and William Byron right now. Imagine denying Austin Dillon Goes on a tear, wins 3 races in the playoffs. Imagine the drama that plus that would cause for sure. Have Austin Dillon 10. Are you saying like you have Austin Dillon 10th on the power rankings? I can't put non-playoff drivers in the top 10. I mean that's the only thing right now. I mean maybe at the end of the season when we have only like 8 drivers battling for the championship, if he goes on a hot streak maybe, but as of right now he's not one of the contenders for the championship. So versus there's 16 drivers that are. So unfortunately, I couldn't put Austin Dillon in there, even though he did look strong the last couple weeks. I don't think I would have put him in the top 10 anyway, though, just because the races before Michigan, he wasn't doing so hot and he was losing points to Reddick. I'd say Reddick was a hotter driver at that time. So again, Kurt Busch at number 7, Alex Bowman at 8, Brad Keselowski 9th, and William Byron rounding out the top 10 right now. Number 6 on the power rankings list, I have Martin Truex Jr. Again, much like Alex Bowman, 3 wins on the season for Truex. Hasn't really shown the consistency that, say, Kurt Busch has had this year. But the reason why he's ahead of Kurt Busch is 3 wins to 1 win. He's also got a lot more playoff points than Kurt. Actually, Truex only has 1 stage win compared to Kurt Busch has 3. Oh, sorry, I was looking at DNFs. My bad, I was looking at the wrong category. Truex has 5 stage wins to Kurt Busch's 3, so I guess he has more stage wins too. Obviously, Truex is tied for 2nd right now versus Kurt Busch's 11th in points. That's a pretty big, gap. He's got 19 more points above the cutoff line compared to Kurt Busch as well, so that really does help for Martin Truex Jr. So I am leading on Martin Truex Jr. being ahead, 6th in the power rankings list. And the reason why Truex isn't higher with being 2nd going into the playoffs is, again, because of recent races. Really, the entire second half of the regular season has not been good for Truex. We look at the recent races, 29th at Daytona, 10th at Michigan, 15th at Indy, 3rd at Watkins Glen, 12th at New Hampshire. Last 5 races, he's only got 2 top 10 finishes. And he's got a couple top 10s at Atlanta, Road America, but then Pocono 11th and 18th at both Pocono races, 22nd at Nashville, even the All-Star race, he was 13th. And that's where he starts to slide down. The second half of the year, I mean, again, since the All-Star break, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 races. So 10 races since the All-Star break at Texas. And in those 10 races, Truex only has 4 top 10s, 2 top 5s. Not as consistent as Kurt Busch in those 10 races. I think Kurt's got 2 more top 10s than him. And he also has 1 more top 5 than him and a win in that stretch versus Truex doesn't. But the playoff points for Truex at the beginning of the year has put him 2nd in the standings as of right now compared to Kurt Busch. So that's why Truex is ahead. Denny Hamlin comes in at number 5 on the list. I want to put Denny Hamlin in my championship 4, and the only reason that he is not is because the drivers that I do have in my championship 4 right now are drivers that have playoff points compared to Hamlin. Hamlin doesn't have any wins this season, and he did not win the regular season championship that could have gotten 15 playoff points. Because he did not get either one of those 2 things, I can't put Hamlin in my championship 4, but he is very, very close to it. He is in 5th. He also has struggled in the second half of the regular season compared to the first half. Him and Truex were very hot at the beginning of the season, but even Truex has 3 wins compared to Denny Hamlin having none. The reason why Hamlin is ahead of Truex is simply because of the consistency, even in recent races as well. We go back to the All-Star race if you want to compare stats to Martin Truex Jr. Truex had 4 top 10s in that stretch of races. Denny Hamlin has 5 top 10s. Truex only had 2 top 5s in that stretch. Denny Hamlin's got 4 top 5s in that stretch. Those top 5s, 4th at Pocono, 5th at Road America, 5th at the Glen, and 5th at Michigan. he has shown race-winning speed in recent races as well. Really, the last 3 races, Denny Hamlin has had race-winning speed. He likely would have won at Indianapolis if Chase Briscoe didn't dump him after he got penalized. Michigan, he looked really fast at the end of the race. He didn't look as fast at the start of the race. It was basically a Hendrick-dominated race, and it was throughout until Blaney stole it at the end. But Denny Hamlin looked like he was the only one on natural speed that could have actually caught those Hendrick boys on the long green flag run before the rain came. And then also Daytona, he was running great. Was in the top 3 there late before Elliot threw a bad block on Benedetto. So, again, more consistent than Truex, which is why I have him ahead. I have more faith that Hamlin could get more consistency in the playoffs compared to Truex. A lot of the racetracks that we are going at in the playoffs are races we ran earlier in the year. And remember, Denny Hamlin had a streak of 9 straight top 5 finishes early in the season as well at tracks like Phoenix, where the Championship 4 is at, if he can make it to the Championship 4. Martinsville was in that stretch of races. Richmond was in that stretch of races. I know it was dirt Bristol and not, oval Bristol with the concrete, but we still go back to there. Maybe that could translate. We know Hamlin's a great short track racer. Darlington, we raced at in that stretch early in the season as well. So a lot of those racetracks are races that Hamlin ran very well at earlier this year, and I think that will help him versus Truex as well. Now, you could also say that Truex won at Martinsville this year. We go back there. He won at Richmond he won at, what other tracks did he win at? Darlington, that's right. He won at Darlington. We go back there again. And he won at Phoenix, which is where the Championship 4 is at. So it goes hand in hand. I still have more faith in Hamlin. Seems like his picker's been a little better than Truex's this season as well. I got more faith in Chris Gabehart as well than the Aussie on top of the pit box for Martin Truex Jr. But not to say that he's a bad crew chief, but Chris Gabehart, the last 3 seasons, even though they haven't won this year, the consistency Hamlin has shown this year is better consistency than any other year we've seen Hamlin. He was leading the points for so long this season. Your Championship 4 is Logano, Bowman, Blaney, and Larson. That's interesting. That is very interesting. Well, I will say 2 of those drivers I have in my Championship 4. And those 4 drivers, we start off with number 4 because we're going in rescending order. We're going to start off with Ryan Blaney. Yes, my man, Ryan Blaney is up to 4th. And the only reason is because he has won the last 2 races. And even looking beyond the last 2 races, I think a lot of people look at Blaney finishing 3 straight races in the top 2 and winning the last 2 races as being obviously some strong performances. Don't get me wrong, that's really strong performances. But even if we go prior to those last 3 races, Blaney was still on a hot streak. And you could tell that win was coming. I don't think we expected back-to-back out of him. But we could tell that there was going to be a hot streak on the horizon for Ryan Blaney. Since the All-Star break, 1st at Daytona, 1st at Michigan, 2nd at Indy, 14th at the Glen, step back, 5th at New Hampshire, 5th at Atlanta, 20th at Road America, another small step back, before 6th at Pocono, 5th at Pocono, Nashville, he finished 37th, got wrecked there, but then the All-Star race 5th as well. So if you count the All-Star race, which I don't usually count it, but I just want to for this statistic alone, if you count the All-Star race, Ryan Blaney has finished in the top 5 7 times in the last 11 races. Yes, Ryan Blaney has 7 top 5s in the last 11 races. So it's not like it's just the last couple races that he has won. He has put himself in those positions to win late race drama for the situation and the fact that they have had speed since the All-Star break. Something clicked at the All-Star break. They were hot at the very beginning of the year. Well, they were slow from Daytona through the first few races. Then he got some speed going into Vegas for that 4th race of the season. From Vegas through Talladega, he had good speed and obviously won at Atlanta. Then it died off. But then after Nashville, he has just been on an unbelievable streak. Even if we exclude, the All-Star race in Nashville, in the last 9 races for Ryan Blaney, he's only finished outside the top 10 twice. So he's got 7 top 10s in the last 9 races and 6 top 5s in the last 9 races with 3 straight top 2 finishes, 2 straight wins. Ryan Blaney is right up there with the top 4 as far as the hottest drivers in NASCAR right now, and that's why I have Blaney as my number 4 for making it to the championship 4 right now. We look at the playoffs going in as well. He's got 2 career wins at Talladega, win at the Charlotte Roval in his career as well, and I think that could easily get him to the round of 8. The tracks earlier this season that he ran at well, like Kansas. Martinsville, he led over 200 laps in this season. And Texas last year, when we ran Texas, obviously he had a 5th in the All-Star race, which is good. But then even last year at Texas in the summer race there, he led over 100 laps and won both stages as well. So he definitely, with that kind of consistency, can make it to the championship 4. And because he's now got those last 2 wins, it ties him for 2nd in the playoff standings. I think a championship 4 is definitely possible for Ryan Blaney all of a sudden, which, 5 weeks ago I wouldn't have said that. So you can see my light is finally burnt out in the top right, I guess, on the screen. It's gotten a little bit darker. I just trust PJ Hamlin. There you go. Hamlin will find a way in the championship 4. That's definitely possible. That would be the veteran in Denny to do so as well. The only reason I don't have Logano in there is just because Blaney's the best Penske driver right now. I mean, you can't deny it. I mean, he's higher in points than the other 2 at the end of the regular season. He has 2 more wins than both of them. And he's got more stage wins than both of them, too. He's just been better in every statistical category than those guys. Believe it or not. Which is even hard for me as a Blaney fan to believe, really. All right, top 3. My other championship 4 driver is Kyle Busch. Kyle is right there with one of the hottest drivers in NASCAR. I almost put Ryan Blaney ahead of Kyle Busch, and the only reason I didn't is because those races for Kyle Busch that he hasn't finished well in, I don't think is his fault, like New Hampshire with the rain while he was leading early. It took him out of a chance to probably win that day because he looked fast. I know it was only a couple laps in, but had the track position, obviously, and we know New Hampshire was one of his better tracks, so I don't want to count that against him. Indianapolis road course, he was in the top 5 late. He was running 4th when the curb broke. I don't want to count that against him either. And then Daytona, he was up there late, got caught up in an accident that wasn't his fault, but that's kind of the same for everybody, so I kind of throw them in that group. If it wasn't for New Hampshire and Indy, I would throw Kyle Busch at 4 and put Blaney at 3. I'm going to give a pass to Kyle Busch, but if Blaney, especially with next week, Darlington being his worst racetrack, or even Darlington and Richmond being Blaney's worst racetrack statistically on the NASCAR Cup Series circuit, if he outruns Kyle Busch in one or both of those races, I have to put Blaney ahead of Kyle Busch at that point. So I'll give Kyle Busch a pass for now, but he better perform in the next 2 weeks or he's going to be bumped down to at least 4th. And if Hamlin outruns Kyle Busch in the next couple weeks on top of Blaney, I think I'm going to bump Kyle Busch out of my championship 4, but for right now, he is in. Also has playoff points to back it up with that high regular season points finish. I think he was 3rd at the end of the regular season. Tyler Burbeck, I like that championship 4. Yeah, that's not bad. That's definitely not bad. And my championship 4 continues on. I got Chase Elliott at number 2 and Kyle Larson at number 1. Larson, number 1. How could you not? He's number 1 in the regular season standings. He won the regular season championship. That's 15 playoff points. He's got 12 stage wins on the year. That's another 12 playoff points. And he has 5 race wins on the year. That's 25 playoff points, giving him a grand total of 52 playoff points. He is 28 points ahead of Truex and Blaney, who are tied for 2nd. He doesn't even have to beat those guys. He only has to be ahead of 12th at the end of this round. And even going into the championship 4, he only has to be ahead of 5th in points. As of right now, he's 31 points ahead of 5th. And if we just take it round by round, ahead of 13th, which he has to be in the next 4 races, he's 47 points ahead of 13th right now. Kyle Larson is definitely the championship favorite. Chase Elliott is at number 2. I have him ahead of Blaney and Kyle Busch. He's very similar compared to Blaney statistically. Obviously, Blaney's got more wins than him in the last 8 races. Elliott's got 1 win versus Blaney has 2. And he's got less top 5s as well. Similar to Kyle Busch, though. I'll give him a pass He does have more top 10s than Blaney in the last 8 races, but Blaney's got more top 5s than Elliot by far, more wins. I'll throw Elliot in that same boat I throw Kyle Busch in. If Blaney outruns Chase Elliott and Kyle Busch the next 2 weeks, I think I could put Blaney at 2, but for right now, I have him at 4 just because of the whole season collectively. We'll see if Blaney can keep the hot streak up. So I'll give Elliott and Kyle Busch a little bit of a pass here this week, even though Blaney's turned on the afterburners. And again, I just mentioned why Kyle Larson rather is number 1. So more predictions and analysis either Wednesday or Thursday. A video will be uploaded on the channel, likely Thursday because I have off Thursday. So we'll just shoot for Thursday. Thursday will be my regular season predictions. The drivers who I think will make it to the championship 4. Obviously, I kind of spoiled that right here, but I will have a further in-depth video on that. Not only championship 4, but round by round knockouts. And again, we'll look at it a whole. Where was I wrong? Where was I correct on drivers who I predicted to make the playoffs originally before the Daytona 500 at the beginning of the season? Like, share, and subscribe for more daily NASCAR content. Don't forget to join the Fantasy League as well, the NASCAR mobile app or website again. Details on that were earlier on in the video. And I will see you guys in a few minutes. We'll bump the start time back to 6:15 Eastern Standard Time. Means this live stream went a little long. We had a lot to cover with the playoffs starting this week, as well as Daytona. So got that all covered up. Now we'll go more in depth again later on in the week. So like, share, and subscribe, guys. Road to 1,000 subs. Road to becoming a NASCAR commentator as usual. NASCAR Heat 5 Career Mode action in less than 10 minutes.